The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello everyone and welcome into the Rochester Press Box. We are from the mighty Genesee Brewhouse today and happy to be rejoined by Jenna Cottrell. Jenna, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Rochester sports icon, Mike Catalana.
Hey, it wasn't that funny.
I'm not laughing at that.
And what are you selling today?
Well, I'm wearing
Look.
Frölund HC. It's a Swedish hockey team, but this is a Rasmus Dahlin jersey, the soon-to-be first overall pick and savior of the Buffalo Sabres.
What do you do with that jersey when they make a trade down and pick up 6 picks and don't take Dahlin?
Well, it's okay because it doesn't say Sabres on it, so it's still a really cool sweater. Look at all these logos.
I can't believe, honestly, that this has some value down the road.
I'm wearing it now, so probably not.
Right. Jenna, let's talk, the NFL made a concerted effort to kind of diffuse this whole anthem thing, and like 2 weeks later, it's bigger than it ever was, and it's like, what went wrong?
I mean, I think a lot went wrong. I think the fact that there's so many players that have had a voice, and the fact that there's this past season there was the ability to kneel, to throw up a fist, do whatever you want, and then for owners to say we're gonna scale that back. I think no matter what, when they decided to make a decision to impact the anthem, that people were gonna be upset about it.
And then they doubled down with the Eagles thing, which played right into it.
Yeah. That was the thing too, and having all that attention, and then having Fox News use some of the video, the Eagles players actually kneeling before a game and using that video as well. I think this is, politics and sports, it's hard now at this point in our society for them to be divided, and when you try and keep them separate, I think this is kind of the reaction you get.
Mike, your unfinished business last week was right to that point.
Well, getting rid of the visits to the White House, because I think it becomes so political. And then the part of the anthem, could the NFL have handled it any worse? I mean, not only, so look at what the NBA does. Now, they've had this policy in place, but it was negotiated as part of the contract with the players. They will come out, they will stand for the anthem. And the NFL goes through this whole process last year where they meet with the players and they're going to spend money, and that's fine. But then they turn right around and unilaterally slap this policy on and then say to the players, but if you want to not be out there, you can go do your protest or go stay inside the locker room. It was ill-conceived from the beginning. Players didn't like it. I got to tell you, I don't think a lot of the owners really liked it. Some did. Handled poorly. They deserve what they got because the NFL handled this in a very clumsy way.
I think also it's a point too, like last year we would even talk about it before, especially at Bill's 1 o'clock games, they wouldn't even show the anthem on a national broadcast, but now because it is so much a talking point, they made it a talking point, and now it's got to be covered.
I really wish we could go inside the heads of all the NFL owners and see if they wish they could have had a mulligan, because it's becoming painfully obvious. They did this to placate the president. Nothing you do is going to placate the president, whether it's ill will he holds because of what happened with the USFL, either it's ill will because of what happened with the Buffalo Bills. The bottom line is this: you got blasted, you got conned, you got played, and now there's nothing you can do to roll it back. It all comes down to money. I'm so sick of this being made a patriotism argument, right? The NFL owners don't care what the players feel politically or socially. They care about the money that goes in their pocket, right? If they think this is going to affect the bottom line, well, they're going to change it. So all of these folks that are standing up and saying, good for the NFL for being American patriots, you're not. I've made an argument on the air a couple of times. You could say that the biggest display of patriotism is paying your taxes, right? Because it keeps the holes out of the road and hospitals and all this stuff. Why don't we open up the books of the 32 NFL owners and see how much of their share they are paying of taxes? Did you see that the Carolina Panthers $2 billion sale, the guy who bought it, is pretty much running that team tax-free in Carolina for the next 15 years? So don't sit here as an NFL owner or the NFL look at me and say this is about patriotism when you ain't putting in for the hospital like I am, when you ain't putting in for the hole of the road that I am. It's hypocritical. It's all about money, and I wish people would just open their eyes and see what that is.
We just pick and choose, don't we? And it's
do.
almost arbitrary.
And there's this thought with a lot of fans that this is an obligation of the players. Look, I don't particularly like seeing someone not stand for the national anthem. I guess in a sense, but it's not my fight and it's not my argument. And I go back to this. This is what the NFL gave the players. I think they fell into the opportunity to protest, but they parade the players out there. They pay for the national anthem coverage, basically. They get paid by the military to do the whole military part. And then all of a sudden the players, I say, sort of fell into it or realized, hey, this is an opportunity to use that platform. And the owners don't like it. And many fans don't like it. But they were paraded out there by the league, and now the league's going, oh boy, now we have a problem.
Well, and that's just it. You want to have a problem with the players kneeling for the national anthem? That's fine. I get it. I understand it, right? But don't sit here and applaud folks that are trying to change it because you think they're changing it for the reason you want, because they're not, and they're making you look like a sucker when you clap for them.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House, and we'll talk Buffalo Bills next. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. We're at the Genesee Brew House this week, and this portion is brought to you by Connors and Ferris. You know what? You read the national coverage of the Buffalo Bills, and I swear they're talking about a different team than the ones we kick around every week.
They know nothing about the Bills. When they're up on the Bills, they should be down. When they're down on the Bills, they should be up. I don't think most of the national people have ever understood what has gone on in Buffalo. Perfect example was the benching of Tyrod Taylor last year. It was this outrage that the national media thought Tyrod Taylor was going to sit on the bench. And the reality was they were tired of seeing some of the same mistakes. And it backfired, and they all, shook their fist and said, see how smart we were? Yeah, maybe so. Now let's see how Tyrod does in Cleveland. Right now, they think the Bills are going to be terrible. I think most Bills fans and people who cover understand what they were last year, understand what they're probably going to be this year, and part of the, quote, process is building up that roster. And I think, as I said to you, I think they could have a lesser record this year and maybe even be a better team and have you very excited about next year if things go the way they want this year.
So it's like I saw this list of who did best in the offseason, and Buffalo was 27, and all they could say about it was how much they spent to move up to take the guy who, as a high school kid, had some racist tweets.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, and not as a Bills fan and stand back, listen, they're right. Our offseason wasn't phenomenal. You got what might be your franchise quarterback, but you lost half of your offensive line, and you're spending money to make them leave, right? It's not ideal. That being said, I don't know. I kind of enjoy the fact that the national media doesn't know what the heck we're talking about. One, selfishly, it helps all of us because that's what we do for a living. We talk about it. The folks that believe the offseason is over, did you have your eyes closed during training camp last season? Bean and the head coach, they have no problem wheeling and dealing. And in fact, the biggest moves on the roster last year were made between August 1 and August 15. I'm not convinced that they're done. They still have some gaps at wide receiver. You have guys that are prominent names that could still not be on this roster. I mean, I still got to reserve judgment as to what happened until opening day kicks off.
I think people are just not used to seeing this new regime in Buffalo. The fact that there's Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, two guys in an organization that they're building, it seems like they know what they're doing. Because before, you had Rex Ryan, who we all know his antics. Doug Marrone quitting on the team. People know the 4 Super Bowl losses. They want to cherry pick what they want. And I also think there's a component that has to be attached to 2 words, folding tables. I think you see a lot of videos online, and I think people see this Bills fans kind of acting ridiculous. They're known for that. Bills Mafia, I love them to death, but there's a lot of fans that ruin it for the rest.
I expect this out of these gentlemen.
Oh, come
I
on.
don't expect this out of
That is
you.
absolutely a play that people know. My family has no idea who coaches the Bills, whatever, but they know the fans are really rowdy.
You come in with the national media doesn't know this team, and you put a period on it with, well, the Bills Mafia table slam.
That is a perception. That is a perception.
Oh, really? Says Philly fan. Says fan from Philly.
But I tell you that all the time, and it's unfair because the idiots in Philly ruin it for everybody else.
The idiots in Philly.
He owns them.
I do. I know that there's idiots. I just say that the whole idea of and please don't jump on the table here. I understand that that's part of it. And back to the football part of it, and this is where you say, I think to Jenna's point, I think they're having a tough time adjusting to what appears to be competent leadership in the front office because the Bills haven't had that, and they deserve that doubt. But when you look at the roster, and to Pat's point about the money and all that, it does appear to be set up for next year. all the draft picks next year and salary cap money next year. So this year is still part of the transition. But again, I'm not going to pay attention to what Michael Wilbon or any national person who doesn't really pay attention thinks of the Bills. When they're here, they think they're here. When they're here, they think they're here. They don't understand it. Oh, and by the way, one thing would change perception quickly if Josh Allen quickly becomes a great quarterback. Then all of a sudden everybody's going to think they're
And what
a
you'll
genius.
never hear is that we were wrong.
We were wrong, yeah.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back to the Genesee Brew House, the mighty Genesee Brew House. This is the Rochester Press Box. Like it or not, Pat, legalized gambling has begun in Delaware this week. The first bet was placed on the Phillies, no less, and a winner. No less.
Yeah.
Like it or not, it's beginning to take some form.
I am starting to notice my conspiracy theory brain showing up now that legalized gambling is here. And I go to the NBA Finals, right? You look at that game one with J.R. Smith and dribbling the ball out, and everything that's I should be celebrating is remarkable in sport. I'm now looking with a curious eye. For example, J.R. Smith pulling down an offensive rebound tied and dribbling out the clock for some unexplainable reason. And in my head, I immediately think, well, if there's one guy the gamblers were going to get to on that Cavs team, it's probably J.R. Smith, right? Listen, I know I'm wrong.
Well,
but
of course you're wrong. That's not a very good example.
I'm a rational human being.
Now, let me ask you this.
Well, but
if you were a gambler and you wanted to get something done, the guy you're going to go to is J.R. Smith, who can't even figure. And what's his play on that? To allow the Warriors to cover and to win in overtime by 15?
Everything you're saying is absolutely right. My point is, it's not
Clip that part.
it's not reality. It's perception. And if a guy who loves sports like I do and looks at the whole thing has a sneaking suspicion for a fleeting moment in my head, well, now idiots, more idiots than me, are going to say, well, something's wrong with this. There's an issue here.
Okay, so here's what I would tell you. If you want to have those conspiracies, look at the way it happened in the NBA. It wasn't the dramatic call at the end of the game to shift it from winner to winner. It was a guy and a referee who knew how to control the game, calling fouls in order to have the over or not calling them and having the under. It'll be a subtle thing. You're not going to control a game and have it come right down to the last play and have that much at stake on one call or another call. If you're going to be fixing something, it's going to be done during an entire game or an entire process. It would be silly to wait to the end of the game and depend on J.R. Smith.
But I think you just pay way more closer attention to the end of the game. And if there were to be a mental lapse or something like that, then your immediate reaction is, well, this is fixed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fans will jump to that conclusion.
But you can name 3 examples just from the past week. You got the Rockets went 0 for 27 from beyond the arc in that game 7, right? Was that what it was? 0 for 27. That's suspicious. But listen, you're right.
Really?
Marc-Andre Fleury all of a sudden is playing like a goalie that he hasn't been playing like all season.
Well, first of all, there's not enough money bet on a
But
hockey
these are,
game.
but we're arguing specific examples. I think the overall feeling from the things that he's creating here are very real and are going to get more real.
It's doubt.
There has
doubt.
been legal
and when you
gambling.
Have that in your head.
There has been legal gambling. I'm telling you, you got to worry more about college sports. I really think you got to worry more about because those guys aren't getting paid, and we've seen it happen in college sports before. They get to the right group of players, and I think something could happen.
Mike, like it or not, Aaron Judge gets benched one game going, 8 strikeouts and a doubleheader.
8 strikeouts and a doubleheader and 9 at bats. It was a bad look. I guess it's benched. Look, Aaron Judge gives them so much still. I think they're willing to put up with a lot, but I think there's times they save him from himself a little bit. Let him sit down. Let him cut down on the strikeouts.
Is there a chance he's not all that? He has these stretches.
I mean, but still, I mean, he's going for power.
Power,
He's swinging for the fences. You have to accept that he's going to have some really bad days, and that was a really bad day.
The shame of it is, I think he really does have a good swing. He has a big strike zone.
Yeah.
I think if he had a little more discipline, I think he could still keep that power and strike out a little less. I mean, 8 times within the single day, that's
a lot.
That's a bad day.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. We're at the Brew House. Unfinished Business is next.
Here is the MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Ice cream-inspired iced coffee is here at Dunkin' in the flavors you love. Cookie dough, pistachio, and butter pecan. What's your flavor? America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back to the Genesee Brew House. This is the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished Business brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'.
As the NBA Finals come to an end, everyone is excited to see what LeBron James is going to do. And the conventional wisdom is he's out of Cleveland. He's going to go play somewhere else. And NBA fans are waving their hands in the air going, now it's LeBron. Soon it'll be the Warriors breaking up. And we're going to even out the talent again and make it an exciting league. And I got news for you. This is bad. You don't know what you have until it's gone. Yes, I know that it stinks that there are the same 4 to 5 teams in the conference finals every year, and it always ends up being the Cavs and Warriors. But what you're missing with all of this talent concentrated together, when you turn on an NBA Finals game over the last 4 years, every 5 minutes, you've seen the most amazing basketball play you've ever seen in your life. Jaw-dropping things from LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, and I can go on and on and on. When you split that talent up and even it out again, I mean, sure, I'm a basketball purist. I like watching those games. I enjoy it. But the casual fan doesn't. And it's going to look like basketball got a whole heck of a lot more boring because the talent is no longer there. You don't really watch the Timberwolves. You probably didn't watch the Miami Heat this season. That's fun basketball to watch. It's not watching the 2, 3, 4 best players in the world on the court at the same time dueling back and forth. And when it all evens itself out, you're going to be a little bit sad for what you're missing.
Yeah, well, and we pick it to death, and it's like, like you said, you don't know what you have till it's gone. We're not appreciating it as much as we should.
Right?
I think there's something a little bit in between. I agree with your point. It would be better if it was a little more competitive. Like if the Warriors weren't that much ahead of everybody else. And as we're taping this, they're up 2-0. If it's down a little bit. See, the Warriors and the Cavs, like when it was Celtics and Lakers, it was tight through that time, and one could win or the other could win.
117, end of game 1. It should be 1-1 at this point.
Right,
Yeah.
Just saying,
one of the games.
Out of your mind.
What you got?
All right, so the Bills wrapping up the 3rd week of OTAs, and there's Josh Allen, the newest franchise quarterback. That's what people expect him to be out on the field. He's only 22 years old. He was the 1st-round draft pick for the Bills this year. And people keep asking me, when is Josh Allen going to start? And you have to wait, and you have to be patient. I know it's not exactly the easiest thing. The Bills have been waiting to find their franchise quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, as we know, wasn't the solution. He's now with the Cleveland Browns. But behind him, right now, Tyrod Taylor, gone. So there's A.J. McCarron, as well as Nathan Peterman, and there's Josh Allen. Now, we don't really know what we can see out of A.J. McCarron. Of course, he was a backup in Cleveland. But we need to be patient with Josh Allen. He's learning a new offensive scheme. He's learning a new team, and he's learning what it's like to be a professional athlete. We got to give him time. Now, the over-under 10.5 games, whether or not he'll start, I think if he's worth the investment, which Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have said, you have to wait it out and be very sure when he does start. So I don't know when that will be.
That's Jenna's first betting tip. She said tuck the under, right?
Yeah.
It's Jenna's lock of the week.
Speaking of patience in Buffalo sports, to Pat's jersey sweater he's wearing right now. Did you see Rasmus Dahlin working out at the NHL Combine? And you look at the guy, and he's not a physical specimen like maybe the four of us in working out. But it made me think about something. He's a great athlete. Because we always tend to think of these great athletes as being absolutely the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. And then you watch, part of being a great athlete is hand-eye coordination, is movement on the ice, on the court. Look at Steph Curry, not the biggest, not the strongest, a tremendous athlete. You would not compare him even to some of the players on his own team or other teams that are better, quote, athletes, but there's something to that. But you watch Dahlin, you watch Casey Middlestat, you watch these hockey players and you look at them and you think it's not quite the same league. And then you watch them move and you watch them compete on the ice, and you see what makes a true great athlete. It is hand-eye coordination in addition to the physical skill, and it's what's upstairs too. They think they're going to get that guy, Pat Sweater or not, and they think he's going to be a star, and maybe your definition of a great athlete will change.
It's a new dawn in Buffalo, right to the point of what you two are both saying. We got Allen and Dahlin coming in.
Except the difference is when Dahlin's there, I think he is playing right away.
Yeah, I agree.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Jenna, thank you very much. Nice job.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, as always, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.